Hey guys, let's talk about the real number system. So the real numbers or the real number system are going to include rational numbers and irrational numbers. They're going to include integers, whole numbers, and counting numbers or natural numbers. So some examples of real numbers would be 0, pi, negative a half, 7, square root of 2, square root of 16, negative 5, zero point 0.3, and zero point 0.4 repeating. So the real number system includes just about every kind of number that you've ever seen if you're, say, an Algebra 1 or a geometry student. Probably every kind of number you can even think of would be in the real number system. Now, if you've had Algebra 2 or above, then you realize that this doesn't have all of the numbers in it because it doesn't include imaginary numbers or square roots of negative numbers. So if you're an Algebra 1 or below or geometry or below, you don't even need to be concerned about that right now, so just let that go. But I'll just say this, the real numbers include all these different kinds of numbers here. And the real numbers break into two big categories: the rational numbers and the irrational numbers. So they are subsets of the real numbers. So the rational numbers would include 0, 5, negative a half, square root of 4, zero point 0.3 terminating, and zero point 0.3 repeating. The definition of a rational number is any number that could be written as a fraction. So negative a half is obviously a rational number because it is a fraction. Square root of 4 might not be so obvious, but the square root of 4 is 2, and you could write 2 is 2 over 1. 0 point 0.3 is 3/10. 0.3 repeating is 1/3. 5 is 5 over 1, and 0 is 0 over 1. So all these numbers could be written as a fraction. So a rational number is any number that can be written as a fraction. The root word on rational number is a ratio, and a ratio is a comparison of two things, and that's what a fraction is. When we say 1 over 2, we're saying 1 compares to 2, or 1/2. It definitely is a rational number because it is a fraction. The irrational numbers, on the other hand, are numbers that cannot be written as fractions, like pi, the square root of 2, and negative square root of 3, and e. So pi is 3.141592, goes on forever, never repeats, never terminates. So it never repeats itself, and it doesn't stop. The square root of 2 would stop if you did it on a calculator, but your calculator is only giving you an approximation. So anything that's an imperfect root, like the square root of 2, it's not a whole number, it's going to be irrational. Negative square root of 3 is not a whole number, so it's going to be irrational. But notice the square root of 4 is 2, or the square root of 16 is 4. Anything that's a perfect root is rational, but anything that is a non-perfect root is irrational, not rational. That's what that means. So the real numbers break into those two big categories. And then underneath the rational numbers is a subset called integers. Integers are positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. So no fractions here, no decimals, but just positive and negative whole numbers: 1, 2, 3, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, and it also includes 0. So positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. The reason we say it that way is that 0 is the only number that's neither positive nor negative. And then we have the whole numbers underneath the integers. The whole numbers are a subset of the integers, and the whole numbers just don't include any negative numbers. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Those are the whole numbers. So they're basically the integers, but not the negatives. And then underneath that are the counting numbers, or the natural numbers. These are the numbers that you would count with. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. If you're counting some things, you don't include 0, and you don't include negative numbers when you're counting. So this is the real number system. So the real numbers, I would say the definition for that is the real numbers include both the rational and the irrational numbers. And then the rational numbers are numbers that can be written as fractions. They are repeating or terminating decimals. Irrational numbers are numbers that cannot be written as fractions. They are non-repeating, non-terminating decimals like pi. That's the most famous irrational number. E is a number like 2.72, goes on forever, doesn't terminate. A lot of business applications use E. So E is like pi. It's like the second most famous irrational number. And then the integers are positive and negative whole numbers, including 0. The whole numbers are the numbers that you would use to count with, but they also include 0. And then the counting numbers or the natural numbers are the numbers that you use to count with 1, 2, 3, ... like that. This is the real number system.